So after a whole day of summit, I'm sure you must have loads of questions that would like to direct to our speakers. Let's invite our moderator, Mr. Ben Zhang, convener of Internet Application Developer Working Group of Internet Society Hong Kong, as a moderator. Mr. Zhang? Maybe let's invite Mr. X.C. Leung, a chairman of Internet Society Hong Kong, as a moderator. And also, let's invite Dr. Li Gao, Mr. George Abrams, and also Mr. Paul McKellar to come up to the stage and answer the questions from the audience.
Hi. Yes, please be seated. Do we have more microphones? Wow, we had a number of very good presentations. Now is the time, I think some of you already have some questions when they are presenting. So yeah, it's the time for you. Just raise your hand. Yes, we have 2 already. 3, wow. Yeah, can somebody pass the microphone to the back? Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Just something to ask about Square. So, what makes it difficult? What's the difficulties when Square is trying to enter Hong Kong? Is that the banks or because there are a lot of credit card payment gateways in Hong Kong like PayPal or Asia Pay. So, what is your difficulties when you're trying to enter Hong Kong, as we know that you are already in Japan? And the second question is that how do you handle credit card frauds? Because you actually pay the merchants the same day they make the purchase. So how do you make a difference between a valid or an invalid credit card transaction? Thanks.
Okay, so whenever we enter a new country, we have to, first of all, understand the culture of the country and like what they expect from payments. For example, some countries have different expectations about debt, and they have different expectations about using credit cards versus using octopus cards versus using cash. It is important for us to understand all those things, and then it is also important for us to have business agreements in place. For every country that we enter, we have to partner with a bank that does merchant agreements in that country, and that requires a lot of work. In addition to that, we also have to understand lots of things like taxation. In every country, there's entirely different types of taxation for certain types of items, for certain types of areas, for lots of different types of things. For example, even in the United States, on a state-by-state basis, different things are taxed in different ways. For example, I keep saying that, milk is not taxed in Florida because it is considered a good that should not be restricted by government spending. So we have to make it so that every single item is either taxable or not taxable. That kind of subtlety is everywhere in the tax law. If you look at tax law, it's like often hundreds of pages just on a country-by-country basis. So taking all of that law and putting it into software is a huge hassle. Otherwise, we'd be in every country overnight, right? It's a very tough thing. What was the second question? It was, how do we move money while they're like credit card? So there's a lot of nuance that goes into that. When we tell a merchant that we've moved money, we have actually checked to see if the credit card has money. We've actually gone and moved the money out of the credit card. Sometimes you find out that a credit card has fraud like 60 days later, in which case we have to tell the merchant that the money that they made wasn't actually money that they made. That is just part of having a merchant agreement. You don't necessarily make money. It is part of Visa and MasterCard and also our business to look at the entire network and police it as best that we can. So what we need to do is we need to constantly monitor who is coming into the network, what kind of person do they look like, what their personal credit score is, where they live, not literally where they live, but as much information as we can gather about them and decide whether or not they're likely to defraud us. And then we give them a certain amount of credit. So we say, all right, you have a good credit card score, so we're going to give you $1,000 of immediate reimbursement of your money, and then we're going to hang on to the rest of it until we are like more sure about you.
We have some other questions at the back.
Hi, Paul. I have a technical question to you. So I'm very interested in using the audio jet to transmitting data from iPhone to those small things. So actually, you're treating it as a transmission channel. So in order to send the data from one side to the other side, there's got to be some program to handle, let's say, modulation, demodulation, let's say checking error data. So I wonder if for me, say I want to develop something, some other application use this AutoJet to develop it application. I want to make use of it. So could you tell me those programs, where can I find some information about those programs?
So there's no software in the original Squares. So what I'd recommend looking at is look at how the magnetic strip of a credit card is modulated. It's a type of signal, I can't remember, but it basically looks like a spike and then cut down and then another spike. And depending on whether or not, like how many spikes and how far apart they're spaced, that'll give you binary information. And so you can play a sound out of one iPhone using just like, if you get, actually check this out. So if you get a Square device, you can plug it into an iPhone and then you can take a magnetic card and you can swipe it and you can record. And then you can take an audio cable from one phone to the other and actually play the signal back. So you can transfer data with just a wire from phone to phone using the microphone. But you do have to be able to like decode and encode audio data. Does that help?
That's quite direct. You mean you don't need to do any encryption, just directly?
Well, it depends on what kind of information that you want to send. Encryption will allow you to protect the information, but if you just want to send information from one phone to the other, you just need to encode it in a way that you can decode. There's a very well-established encoding, and there's also open source credit card encoding and decoding. They're not great, but it's a good start. We don't use them because we have better ones.
All right. So, no, sorry, another question. So have you ever considered open up those part of the software and make it open source, so someone else could make use of it, so others don't have to reinvent the wheel?
So Square believes in open source. We have a GitHub page which has lots of open source on it. That being said, I think it's unlikely that we'll ever open source that aspect because it's too core to our user experience. If we were, then we just invite competitors too quickly. There's a lot of other types of open source, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Hey, I actually live in the States, so when I first heard about Square, I was probably one of the first people to get it and start swiping for like $1 or $2 with my friends.
Awesome.
My question to you is though, one thing that I guess I always wonder about Square is how do you fend off people like PayPal, because you know they have that PayPal here swiper that just came out. So what's the biggest difference between you and PayPal, and how do you fend that off?
What's the biggest difference between us and PayPal? Well, we were first, and let's see, we're square and they're triangle. And our fee structure is different. We have different expectations as far as what kind of user and like how the user works. I think if you want to use PayPal, you should use PayPal, but I think Square is a much better product.
All right. Are there any other questions? Okay. I hope there's other questions. I don't expect so many questions on Square, which is not big data.
But I'm doing a question on Square anyway. Hi, I work for Wikipedia, and actually I have a Square account. Can you just give me a Square when you have launched here? I have a Square account.
Excellent.
And then, we are serving a conference here for people from many countries. So we're using old system made by Israelis. It's PayPal, and I hate PayPal. And then, I guess you have so many reasons why Square is over PayPal, and so many countries don't have PayPal. And so my kind of question is, what do you think you're over PayPal? What are your advantages of that? I know, but yeah, just I want a Square.
What are the advantages over PayPal? So I think PayPal is a software company first and foremost. They started as like the email eBay like money transfer company. I think that they use that to launch into many different countries. That being said, I think Square is dedicated like point of sale. I think that we're always going to have a much better point of sale system. I think that PayPal has shown that they are spending 10 years of just like trying to tweak business fee structures to try and make you happy, whereas like Square is actually innovating in product. And I think that you'll always have a better experience using Square.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Leonard. I'm actually interested in the development process on each of the company. I spoke to Dr. Gao before, so maybe he can just share it again. What I want to understand is from a developer's perspective, when they first join your company, how, I assume they have a computer, how does the code migrate from what they developed into production? So basically, I want to understand your development process. Is that something you guys could share?
So let me start because we have already chat, over the break. So basically, the question is how do we get the new source code into the production environment? What is the the process, right? So at LinkedIn, in the earlier days where we expect to bring up the entire software stack on the local box, but as we as the software stack gets bigger and bigger, it's no longer the case where we can you expect to bring an entire stack on your local box, and it could also take a long time. So what we do is we adding this development hooks where you can specify for a given component in the LinkedIn stack that you want to deploy from your local source. But for the rest, you can go and access the the services that are already running elsewhere by directly just do a remote access. So this way, you're able to test your service within the entire stack without having to redeploy other components. You only need to deploy the components that have a dependency to what you build. So this is how we do the the first phase of testing of what we call the local testing. And after that, we have what we call the integration testing, where we bring an entire stack up, but with just one instance for each service. So this is mainly for feature testing. And after that, we're getting into beta testing environment, where we're focus on not only the feature, but also performance. But we scale down the traffic. Let's say in prod, we do 100 QPS per second. Then we scale down by a factor of, one order of magnitude down to do, 10K QPS or even less. And then correspondingly, we deploy, that a portion of the hardware into in our beta environment. So after the beta is certified, then we do one last step, which is canarying your change onto a selective nodes in production, running for 1 or 2 days or a week. And after you certify that, then the services roll out to the entire cluster. So.
Yeah, at Twitter, I think we have a fairly similar process to LinkedIn. Another way to answer that question is we focus on a lot of the agile methods the agile methodology for programming development. So we have a lot of these stand-up meetings, these like 15-minute meetings where everyone gets together in the morning and we're literally standing up because hopefully that drives the meeting faster. We also focus on a lot of review boards, so any code that gets shipped is reviewed by at least one other engineer before it actually gets shipped. So we use an actual tool called Review Board for that. And so it's kind of a combination of these agile methods, which hopefully allow us to be fast, and then Review Board to make sure that code is up to like the kind of standards we expect.
Square does a lot of the same type of techniques. In addition to those type of things, we also do continuous integration. So whenever you merge something into the main repository and you push it, a large fleet of computers immediately spool up and then run hundreds of tests to make sure the integrity of the software is at our standard, and then it automatically deploys it out to the internet.
Yep. There's a lady in the front.
Well, we have been talking about big data and privacy today. Well, it may be a cliche to say that technology changed the way we behave, but I think it is very true for the young users, especially those the teenagers. So if the younger generation is going to rule our world in the future, and from your experience, how they use the internet and all these social media platforms, do you think that they don't mind so much about privacy nowadays? Since we tweet about what we have for breakfast, we would say where we are partying. Of course, we wouldn't be uploading our partying photos on LinkedIn because this is a more professional site. But still, a lot of information has been we'd like to share on these platforms. So do you think privacy would be such a major concern for future generations, in the future, or are we these, like me, the older generation, are just too over-worrying about this issue?
Great question, and I actually find that a lot of cases we like to kind of diss the youth and say they don't have these concerns for privacy, and I don't think that's actually the case. I think actually today's kind of youth is very aware of privacy concerns, very aware of sharing of information. Maybe when things like Facebook first came out, they weren't so aware, but I would think even like the younger people are very much aware of what's being shared and how companies are using it. They're making the decision that they still want to get the value out of it, but I don't think it's a very fair statement to the newer generations to say that they don't understand this. I think they probably understand it a lot better than most of us do.
Well, I know they understand better because they use it a lot. But do you think because they don't mind sharing all this information on the internet, do you think it would still be such a major concern in future?
I actually think they're very selective about what information we're sharing, and I think that's the reason you see apps like Snapchat becoming so popular very quickly. Like the youth automatically, hey, wait, there's a way we can send these images, whatever, and they're going to self-destruct now. Whether they actually self-destruct, I think, is a bit more of a question when it comes to that app these days, based on what's come out recently. But I think the youth are very aware and very selective of what they're sharing. In a lot of cases, they're very open, though. They understand that they're less concerned about if this particular information is there, but other pieces of information they actually will keep. And I think that comes about a lot from having to deal with their parents. Youth are very good about what they share with their parents. Some things they share, some things they don't. And everyone knows, my parents are on Twitter, my parents are on Facebook, my parents are on LinkedIn, and so.
Lee, I have a follow-up question on this. I think for Twitter, the users are more younger generation or general users, but for LinkedIn, they are more professionals. So do you think that there will be quite a different view on the privacy in LinkedIn? But on the other hand, I know that a lot of recruitment companies like to explore as much information from other LinkedIn users as possible. So is there some contention on privacy?
Well, I don't think there's as much a contention per se, because what we do at LinkedIn is providing the value for our member. Meaning, if we mine your data, if we monitor and your activity and analyze them. The result of that is to be able to provide sort of, for example, one of the application we have is called Jobs You May Be Interested. So based on your professional identity, what do you do, what companies you're following, what group you're following, what kind of a discussion you participate, and then we also knows what kind of job advertisement we're getting. Then we try to do the identity match, in terms of give you a list of jobs that you're highly likely, if you're looking, that will be sort of match your background, will be the jobs that you actually want to take, not something irrelevant. So from this perspective, I would see, there's no contention. We're actually doing what our members want us to do.
Is any microphone on this side?
Hi. I know that lots of the social medias are changing the landscape of advertising. Traditional medias are being less adopted. For example, lots of the companies are trying to replace recruitment agencies with LinkedIn. And Oriel did a really great job in Super Bowl and Twitter. So how are you guys educating marketing agencies or companies themselves to adopt marketing strategies or advertising networks on your guys' platform?
A great question. Obviously, advertisers are kind of our customers, so to speak. And so we have a lot of different programs. I mean, one of the key ones, the way you can see what Twitter's doing is business.twitter.com will bring together a lot of resources that we use for the education of advertisers, how to be a business on Twitter. And so there's case studies, there's videos, there's all this. That's something that we're still looking at is how do we, because some advertising agencies, very cutting edge, adopt technologies quickly. Other ones move as slow as a bank. So how do we kind of address all of them? And so that's something we look at. But if you check out business.twitter.com, I think you'll see a lot of kind of examples of what we're doing in that kind of education program.
So let me comment on that too. What do we do at LinkedIn? One of the sort of promising products we're trying to push out is we call the targeted ad or targeted campaign, where when the people who wants to do a campaign on LinkedIn would specify the sort of nature of the campaign, what kind of a user group they're targeting for, and because we have already the data about our members, so we can actually again through some offline big data analytics, we can figure out what are the group of people that this campaign should be targeted. And therefore, our sort of the turnaround rate is higher just based on the relevance of the campaign content that is showing up for our members.
Yeah. In the middle of this slide, please.
Hi, I think for all of the companies on the three guests here have not really entered the Chinese market right now. The China market is very different from the rest of the world. There's censorship of the government, and there's many strong competitors in there, no matter it's a copycat or not. So is there any plan for you to enter the Chinese market?
Okay, let me do a quick answer to your question. We are very interested. China's market is very highly valued, but at this time, I cannot make a specific comment about China market strategy. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, great question. Twitter isn't in China today, and we very much look at the Chinese market and value that a lot. We're pretty much banned at this point, though. So, if you have suggestions on how to get into China, I'm sure we're interested in hearing them.
Yeah, my answer is about the same. Square is very interested in every country, including China. The sooner we do it, the better.
Yeah.
Hi. So obviously you're all very strong technology companies. I'm wondering if you guys have got any tips or tricks or techniques for hiring really good technologists into your companies.
A great question, actually. That's a huge source of internal debate on Twitter right now, is because we want to hire the best people, and how to do that is very challenging. I mean, there's different approaches. A lot of companies, and we do this at Twitter, do these kind of whiteboard interviews where you bring in someone and then you give them algorithmic challenges and see how well they do on a whiteboard. But how someone does on a whiteboard right there on the spot doesn't necessarily correlate with how well they're going to write code and how well they're going to do an environment. So we've tried other approaches, like bringing them in, giving them a computer, have them write code. Well, a lot of developers come in given some computer, and it's not their dev environment, it's not their computer, their shortcuts aren't set up that way. That can really throw them off. It's very difficult to kind of find the right people. We spend a lot of time talking with candidates, interviewing candidates, and that's something we need to get better at. It's probably the case that we end up passing on a lot of good candidates because of kind of the formalities of the interviewing process.
I'd recommend hiring people that are doing things that you already want. For example, if you use open source and that open source is already in your software, if you can contact those people, sometimes they are actually available for hire. That works best if you have a high-profile company like Square, or GitHub has done that very successfully. Another thing is finding people, it's the same theme. If you can find someone who's already doing something which is in the same direction, then it makes a lot of sense, because you don't even have to convince them to join your company. They're already doing that, and you just need to be able to say, hey, you could be doing it better with us.
And one other point to add to that is, of course, referrals. I mean, that's actually probably one of the way we find some of our best people at Twitter, is being referred by other people at Twitter. I've worked with this person before, I know them. So that's limited in scope, of course, though.
Ask everyone who joins your company who are the people that they want to work with, even if they're not available, and just say hello to them a lot.
I have a follow-up question on this. When we are talking about big data, we are not only talking about application development. We are talking about a lot about data analysis, building data models. When you hire staff to dealing with this new development trend, do you have any attribute that you perceive that are essentials to hire such kind of staff? And do you think that the current education is sufficient to provide these kind of talents?
Certainly at Twitter, we believe there needs to be more education on computer science, on technology, and we hope to see more potential candidates come about from there.
I wish everyone learned how to program. I think it's a ubiquitous thing. I think it should be just like literature and reading.
So from my point of view, there's in terms of big data, there are different categories of talents that we're talking about. We're talking about data scientists who understand the model, who understand all the algorithms for offline analytics. We have the sort of infrastructure engineers who understand what it takes to build your infrastructure so that you can easily allowing the scientists to be able to implement the models to run, right? For example, building some ready-to-use sort of a job controller executor on top of Hadoop for people to quickly define the job and submit the job and run it, be able to monitor, right? So there's another type, which is once you have the data made available through the data scientist, how do you make use of this data to build your app? So it's really a blend of different talents, to complete this big data sort of feedback loop and build your app.
And one last thing we look for at Twitter that's very important, beyond technical skill and talent, we also look for a culture fit. We look for, you can be a great engineer, you can be a great product manager, but if you don't have the right culture to fit in at Twitter and work with the people there, you won't be successful. So we very much look for people that have the same kind of values, are driven in the same way.
Can you talk more about the culture you expect in Twitter?
Yeah, I mean, at Twitter, we have a set of core values, and that's very much the kind of culture we're looking at. So one of our core values is seek diverse perspectives. If you're someone who isn't going to really want to talk to other people and get feedback, can take getting feedback, some people can't, they just can't deal with it, then you're not going to fit in very well at Twitter. And so we have this set of core values, and we very much look for people that kind of already live by those core values.
My test is the lunchtime test. I like people who I want to sit with at lunch and talk to, and it doesn't necessarily mean they agree with me, but that does mean that they are someone that I want to hang out with during off hours.
They feel comfortable with, talking with you, and you feel comfortable with talking with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we have a lot of questions. Yeah. Well, can somebody hand the mic to this gentleman?
Hi. Just kind of on a slightly more general thing, not specifically about your sort of particular companies, but a lot of, again, particularly startups, tend to just launch in the US and just launch in English. And obviously with something like Square, for example, there's legal issues, sometimes there are licensing issues, but do you think it's, is that acceptable nowadays? Should people be looking more globally? There's 1.2 billion Chinese readers. So, it's just, is that an okay thing to still be doing?
I think there's some inherent difficulty in translating software. Internationalization of software is tough, especially with hundreds of languages and actually using Unicode. That could be a tough thing to implement. I think it's unfortunate how many startups launch only in English and only for American people. That being said, it makes sense when there's only one of you or three of you, and like you just need to get something out of the door, and you need to prove that you have market fit, and you can expand as quickly out as possible. I don't endorse the practice. I think that a lot of companies, when they realize that they have something good going, they later realize that international growth is a very key feature. Facebook very famously realized that they could get a lot of their growth numbers by doing internationalization and translating into as many languages as possible. I think that after Facebook realized that, a lot of people have imitated that success. Yeah.
Another point, I think you're right, and what that is an opportunity, though, right? If everyone here is focused on building companies in America and focused off of that market, then there's lots of competition. If people there, like you said, there's billions of other people out there in the world, and so they need value, they need services, they need apps too, and so that's very much an opportunity.
Yeah, one of the things I like to comment is that the reason that all these new companies are launched in the US-based English is because that's where, today, mostly the innovation is at. But not to say that, once we wanted to, foster such a sort of a innovation culture elsewhere, like, for example, in Hong Kong, then this is maybe the time you see more startup that comes up in Chinese, for example.
James? Yeah, at the back.
Yes, thank you. I would like to ask Lincoln because I read a news on June 19 that saying Lincoln DNS has been hijacked and the traffic has been rerouted to an Indian site. And the cookies are sold there without encryptions. And I want to ask, sorry, the cookies, is it the username and the password of the Lincoln members?
Can you repeat the second part when I couldn't get your question after?
That the news has said that the Lincoln DNS has been hijacked and the traffic has been rerouted to an Indian site, and the site is not an encrypted site, so the cookies of Lincoln's has been showing there. So I want to ask whether this news is real, and if yes, then the cookie is showing is what? Is the username and the password of Lincoln members?
I'm not sure I can fully comment on this. I do know that there are some DNS-related problems, but because of that, the traffic isn't sending to the main side. But what I don't know is whether the traffic was sent elsewhere where there's unprotected or unencrypted place, because we don't have such a site where we have no security.
And since I don't work at LinkedIn, I'm happy to comment on something I don't know anything about. But I find it very, very unlikely that a username and password would be stored in a cookie. I mean, that's just not at all. Typically, a cookie is some number you use to identify some kind of authentication code hashed up. I mean, I don't actually know anything about LinkedIn, but that would really surprise me if that was the case.
It's the authentication token. If, that is, whatever is in the cookie, it's that. It's not really a username and password.
All right. Yes, any more questions? Well, we have two here, one in the front. Yes, the second row, please.
Thank you. I'm just curious, like in a big data company, how does internally the company controls the data scientist access to the big data? So suppose like I have a friend working in LinkedIn, maybe, does he mean he has the full access to my personal data?
All right. It's about security access control.
I can answer that briefly. I cannot go into detail because of security concern. The answer to that is yes, there are authentication requirements for getting the data out of Hadoop and our data warehouse.
Yeah, and I can't talk specifically about Twitter, but there's multiple layers of security and authentication. One of the key fundamentals, and not specific to Twitter, of privacy and security by design is only make information available to people that they need. And so that's always a good practice to have in place.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Minimum amount of information for the exact work that someone's doing.
Yes. We have one question at the back.
Thanks. I just want to know more, because I worked in a little organization of ours as well, and we have a really big network. And we found out synergy and communication is really important within a really big organization. So I just want to understand how communication and project management, how do you ensure that every member knows what's happening in a company, and how it differs between you guys and your companies?
In the early days of Square, there were 5 of us sitting in the same room, and so we'd literally wander around the apartment and talk to each other. As we scaled from 5 people to hundreds of people, a lot of things had to change. One of the easiest ways of doing that was having daily stand-ups where you just say for 30 seconds what you're doing, and then weekly meetings where we have all-hands meetings. We call them town squares, where we say this is what the business is doing, and we have people talk about business deals and technology and what was launched this week. And we also have an email list where every time something changes on the website, we send it out to everyone so everyone knows exactly what has changed. This was good at communicating stuff from engineering to support on a very regular basis.
Yeah, we have a lot of similar things at Twitter. We don't call them global town squares, we call them global tea times. We have stand-up meetings, we have a number of email aliases. I think kind of the question you're asking is how do you get people aligned, right? How do you get everyone working towards the same goal, working in alignment towards that goal? And that's a very important challenge when you become a larger organization. At Twitter, we use the email list, we use meetings, we use Twitter. We communicate a lot through Twitter. Now, obviously, we don't communicate secret things through Twitter, but then we have a number of kind of different meetings, product councils, things like that happen, and to make hopefully people aware of what's happening.
So at LinkedIn, in the early days, when I just first joined, we have about 200 developers. Back then, the communication is easier in terms of finding out what all the developers are doing, what the projects we're building. By just sort of talking to each other during lunch times, email groups, and using the LinkedIn update streams to communicate. But as the company grows into 2,000 or 3,000 developers, we found that this sort of peer-to-peer communication isn't a way to get information properly disseminated or probably within a company. So in addition to what they've been talking about, what we did at LinkedIn is we hold periodically tech talks, internal tech talks. So different groups would go, on every other Friday we held a tech talk during the lunch time, and then different teams come up to give presentation on the specific project they're building, which they see has a big value to share within the company. So yeah, we find out that it's much better way of communicating in a much bigger dev org, because then you prepare for your talk, so you have the main points all outlined, and then you spend time to making sure the important messages are getting out there, and people knows when the talk will be held, and it's during the lunchtime, so they're just sitting, in addition to what they do daily, they get a time to learn about what's going on elsewhere. So that is very cool.
All right. Yes. Yeah.
I guess both of you may probably be addressing this question. How does Jack Dorsey, who is the co-founder of both Twitter and Square, juggle his time between the two companies, and how does he interact with his staff?
That's changed over the years. So when I joined Square, he was 100% at Square, and then when Twitter went through some reorging, he very famously tweeted, all right, now I'm going to work 200% time. I'm going to work 100% at Square and 100% at Twitter. And for a while, we shared 8 hours a day, 8 hours a day Twitter. Since then, he's scaled down his daily involvement with Twitter, I understand, and spent more of his time focusing on Square and promoting Square.
Yeah, Jack Dorsey is an amazing individual, and I don't really understand how he does all that he does.
He's very effective. He's a machine at working. It's amazing.
I would like to ask a question about follow-up about talent acquisition and things. How do you foster the company's culture? Because when we are starting up, it's kind of hard to define what our culture is. Is it top-down or bottom-up? Things like that. How do you foster a culture?
I haven't spent a lot of time in different startups. I don't know that you can force a culture. And I think anytime you attempt to force a culture, it just doesn't work out. Cultures have to develop. And once you develop, you want to protect that culture and build on it and take actions that do so. But trying to force it, I think just doesn't happen. Indeed, as developers working at startups, one of the keys, I think, to success is, do you develop a successful culture? Do you develop a functional culture that can build and do what you need to do?
One thing you're doing is you're already on the right track. The fact that you talk about culture as an actual thing that can be developed and can be understood means that you've identified the question, and you have to just consciously look at it and decide what kind of culture do you want to create. For example, Amazon's culture is one of thriftiness and effectiveness, and through that they give people desks that are made from the cheapest kind of wood, and that's the way they teach people that we are going to try and be as thrifty and as effective as possible. Square's culture is not that at all. We have an entirely different attitude towards culture, and if we were to take that rule and try and apply it in the Square office, it would not create the kind of company that we want to do. We are thrifty, but we're more about design. We're a design technology payments company. So you have to figure out what you're trying to create and then make choices along the way that go towards that. But you're already on the right track if you're even thinking about this.
Yeah, I don't have any more to add other than just saying, sounds like, based on what they're saying, what I understand is that looks like it's from the bottom up is something would work out better, but obviously the leaders have to make sure, whatever the culture that is coming up in the company is actually good for the, business going forward.
Yeah. The culture in many ways comes from the founders. Work in another Jack Dorsey company. We're a very design-oriented company also, and I think that's because Jack Dorsey is a lover of design, and so.
Okay. Well, this is a very good closing question. We talk about a lot about technology, how to build our process, and then in the end, we're talking about culture. That's very good. Thanks a lot for all the very meaningful and useful questions, and let us give applause to our speakers. Thanks, Lei, George, and also Paul. And I will pass this session back to our MC, Samantha. Thank you.
So thank you, our guests and speakers. So now we'll move on to the really last session of the day. It's time to have lucky draw. So we'll have souvenirs bought from Silicon Valley in USA. We have products like Google, Facebook, Apple, and also Yahoo. So now there will be 3 lucky ones for each round. So may I invite Ms. Peng Wong, General Secretary of Internet Society Hong Kong, to draw the first round. So in our first round, there will be products from Google. So the first lucky one is
Alan Lee, Lively Impact.
Are you here? No?
OK，惠興津美安寧。OK，許志斌。哦。
Congratulations. So for the second one.
OK，哦 OK， I know him. Ben Lee, HKIRC.
Mr. Ben Lee. Congratulations. So the third one. So the third one is Mr. Calvin Zhang from the Hong Kong Jockey Club. Congratulations. So now here comes the second round. We'll have T-shirt from Chrome, YouTube, and also Google Mail.
Ronnie Croc, Link Harvard, and RBS Ivan. No? Roger Soul, Link Omina. No? Anyone? Okay. Okay. Lai Wing Chung Paul, HKFYG. City University, Dr. Desmond Choi. No? Okay. HSBC, Sam.
Congratulations. Let's have a group photo. Congratulations to all winners. So now let's invite Mr. Ben Zhang, the convener of Internet Society Hong Kong, to come to the stage to draw the lucky ones for us. So the third round, there are gifts from Facebook Tees. So the 3 winners are
Tommy Koo from the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, Paul Lai of HKFIG and Eva Zhang from HKFIG. Gary Chiu from ICO Limited.
Are you here? Oh, yeah. Congratulations. Let's have a group photo. Thank you. So here is the fourth round. We have products that are apple cap and also some apple teas.
Ronnie Koff from Lancaster. Stanley Learn from Creative Inspire Digital Asia Limited. I am
Dam Jan, Mr. Dam Jang from EPE Log. So there are two more winners.
Okay, Steph Au from DMP Consultants and 謝嘉誠.
So congratulations. Please come up to get your gifts. Congratulations! Here comes the last two rounds of our lucky draw. So let's invite Mr. S. C. Learn, Chairman of Internet Society Hong Kong, to draw the lucky ones for us. So the fifth rounds of products are Facebook and Yahoo Cups.
Kenneth Lui, 呂永祥 Mark Lamotta, 雷成宇 Henry Chen, Hong Kong IRC, and James Mock, Hong Kong FYG.
Are you here?
Dexter Hui, Pay Me.
Congratulations! So we only have remaining one round. Please shout your name in order to get your chance. So our last round of products are all from Apple. They are all Apple mugs and glasses.
Jackie Chen from college.ee. Benedict Lam from Hong Kong Computer Society, and Elise Poon from Hong Kong Young Women Christian Association. Yuji Hui. Yuji.
Congratulations to all winners. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Lang. So thank you very much for your participation in day one of World Internet Developers Summit 2013. I hope you all enjoy and grasp lots of ideas today. See you all tomorrow at 9 a.m. at Hong Kong Science and Technology Park. The lucky draw prize of BlackBerry Set 10, which worth $5,988, will be drawn tomorrow. If you participate in the day 2 of WIDS tomorrow, remember, please bring along your badge to the venue. If not, please put your badge in the recycle box at the registration counter. And we also have some snacks here. You can grab your time to network with our speakers and other participants here. For those who want to take the shuttle bus to MOT, the bus will be depart from Cyberport at 4:45 p.m. See you all tomorrow at our next event. Thank you very much.